Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Ken Susi here. This is a very special live stream. Usually I'm here playing, talking to you about Fishman pickups, about my band Unearth, and all of that cool stuff. But today we have a very special guest. We've been promoting it all day. But before I make mention of it, I would like everyone to head over to the Fishman website, www.fishman.com. You can see all of our cool products, whether it's electric, acoustic, anything that you might need to know about our pickups, wiring diagrams, install guides, all that good stuff, amplification, everything that you need to know. And also, we have a very, very, very special store. It is fishmanstore.com. You can get your cool swag. You could buy some stuff direct, wires, wires and cables and pots, and most importantly, beanies and t-shirts and all this cool stuff. So anyway, don't miss out. If you want to be a fan of Fishman, come over and support our store. So, per usual, I'm always broadcasting live across the socials. We are on our Facebook, our Twitch, my personal YouTube, Lord of the Rigs, and my band's Facebook account as well too, Unearth. But anyway, per usual, I'm always putting up your questions. If you want to jump in, add to the conversation and all that cool stuff, you will be right here on the corner, and we will read your questions. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this live stream today was because last week, one of our viewers asked, what did I think of Reverend guitars? And I said, Reverend makes an amazing guitar. The guys there are really cool. Everyone that's involved with Reverend Guitars is really, really down to earth and really cool. So today I have a very special guest that I'd like to share with you. It is the president of Reverend Guitars, Mr. Ken Haas. Ken, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. How is everybody?
This place is lighting up, so it's cool. I think everyone's
awesome.
Cool. I'm cool. You're cool. So I think you might have heard my intro. I mean, people came in and asked on my last stream what I thought of your guitars. I've always loved your guitars. I'm a huge fan of Greg Koch. Tell us a little bit about what you do. Tell us a little bit about what you do there at Reverend, and just basically the company, a little bit of the company history.
You know, right out of the gate, you said you weren't going to put me on the spot.
That's totally true.
And now I have to make up something to do.
Yeah.
I am the CEO of Reverend Guitars, and in a nutshell, I started working for the founder of Reverend Guitars in the late '90s, Mr. Joe Naylor, and he started Reverend hot off the heels of Naylor amplification, and he had a guitar design that he wanted to run with. I started playing one, and quickly fell in love with it, and stalked Joe into letting me hang around him. More or less, and I just showed up at the shop a lot, basically, and kind of started as a local endorser guy, I guess you could say. And Joe took me to a NAMM show, and I ended up selling a couple of guitars to a mighty, as Greg would say, a mighty warrior, Mr. Will Ray. And it was just kind of by accident. Will and I are the same height. And so we struck up a conversation, and that when Will bought those guitars, Mr. Naylor was like, dude, how did you get him over here? And I really didn't have a good answer for him. You know, I just kind of like talking to guitar players about guitar stuff. And so Joe was impressed enough with that he started taking me to all of the NAMM shows and local guitar shows around the country. Were longtime staples at the Dallas International Guitar Festival and at the Fall Philly Guitar Show. We used to do Long Island a little bit more regularly, obviously Michigan and Chicago. Around 2005, when Joe started rolling out some of the things that are staples in the line now, like our Jetstream model down there on the end and a few other things, I went to the NAMM show in Anaheim and really knocked it out of the park for him. And I sold enough guitars that he realized that he needed to hire me full-time as his sales manager. And so I worked for Joe for 5 years. And then in late 2009, the opportunity presented itself for Joe and I to switch roles. The bigger Reverend got, Joe is a brilliant designer and luthier, and Joe had a whole bunch of guitar and bass ideas that he wasn't realizing, because as the company grew, he was spending more and more time in the office, and that wasn't what excited him about this business. And so we ended up doing a thing in January of 2010 where Penny, my wife, and I bought the company from Joe, and then immediately brought him back into the fold as our exclusive designer slash partner, whoever you want to look at it. Basically, the checkbook went from his desk to mine. And now, 12 years later, we still have that relationship, and we have done nothing but steadily grow for the last 12 years. And once Joe was sort of relieved of some of those aspects of his career, he started doing some of the best design work of his entire life, which has led us to where we are. How was that?
That was pretty amazing. I mean, that's pretty thorough. That sounds like the history of your company right there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So guys.
Year,
oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, a few people are popping in late, guys. This is Ken Haas from Reverend Guitars. Feel free to ask a question. Someone right here, Joel's writing, Reverend is so cool. Thanks for doing the show today. So it's a surprise.
Awesome. Thank you. 2022 is our 25th anniversary, Ken.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so you guys also do some interesting stuff over there. Joe Naylor is also known for pickups too. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we sure can. Matter of fact, I've got something here. Hard to believe. What do you know? Right, like on hand. Like I knew we were going to ask this question. One of the things that Joe did right after I relieved him of the Reverend CEO role is he got to work on a humbucker design, an idea that he had had for a number of years. Again, another one of these things that he didn't have time to realize. And basically the concept is he wanted a humbucker with the clarity of a single coil, the string-to-string clarity and the tightness of the bottom end of like a P90, right? And he always liked the way that pickups with blades for pole pieces sounded, especially on the bottom end of the guitar, where the thin rail sort of takes a small slice of the magnetic field that's being created by the string. I love saying that; it's like my favorite thing. And so you get this really great compressed sound. Think like Dimebag's rhythm tone. It's just so good, right, with those old Armstrong pickups. But the flip side, of course, of the rails is that when you get under the plain strings, they do the same thing physically, and so it gets very bright and can be shrill. So the concept behind the rail hammers is we put the blades under the wound strings, and we have these oversized pull pieces under the planes, and they all balance together, and you end up with a humbucker with more clarity than all of the humbuckers that have come before it. I like to say it is the most clarity that you can find in a passive humbucker. And he got the patent for that, and then he started playing around with different ideas as different artists that we work with had things to chime in on. You know, Bob Balch from Fu Manchu really liked the stock versions but wished they had a little more of this, and Reeves Gabrels really liked the stock versions but wished they had a little more. And all of a sudden we were doing some signature model pickups. We developed signature pickups for Billy Corgan into the Railhammer line. And then as that started to take off, we had a very similar situation between Penny and Joe and myself, where Joe was spending more time actually maintaining the company than working on new products. And so we brought Railhammer into the fold of the Reverend umbrella, but we market Railhammer as its own thing. It has its own dealer network, and it's available not only in a bunch of Reverend guitars, but it's available in some other brands as well. So those are the two main focuses that happen here in sunny, beautiful Toledo, Ohio. This is the Tommy Coffin signature model. Tommy Coffin is the guitar player for Detroit's own Coffin Cats, which they're in Texas right now. Those guys they jumped in the van and went on a national tour for this winter, which is gutsy, and I like it. And Tommy plays a sort of a modified version of our King Bolt guitar with the chisel Railhammer pickups in it, and of course the funky reverse headstock on the roasted maple neck Carina body and a beautiful gold sparkle. The Tommy Coffin model.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We also have R.C. Tillis, one of my good friends from way back in the day, wrote in Chops McClintock And the Crank Daddies love Reverend guitars. They're amazing. So I've known RC since probably 15 years ago or something like that. And then he started a rockabilly band out in your neck of the woods. Do you know that band?
Who do I? What? Chops?
The Crank Daddy. Yeah, the Crank Daddies.
Crank Daddies. Hell yeah, I know the Crank Daddies. Yeah, Chop's a good friend of ours. So that's funny because those guys, I think that Chops knows of us through the Coffin Cats because they share numerous bills, the Crank Daddies and the Coffin Cats. Similar scene. Very cool. And Chops is a monster whopper of a guitar player, by the way. The dude totally crushes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we do, before you put that guitar completely down, I wanted to just say there's a lot of pickup nerds obviously on this stream.
Yeah.
One thing that Fishman doesn't do, which you do, which Railhammer does, is that cool little design with the half blade, half poles, which you mentioned. That's cool for a lot of people that don't know. I mean, you could probably just talk about it too a little bit, but like a straight blade is going to give you a very, very even decay, and obviously the poles are going to give you a wild decay, kind of like in and out of the string pitcher window. So that was done on purpose, right?
Yes, yeah, because you end up with that really tight compressed bottom end on the guitar, and you can do like palm muting, chunky rhythm stuff on the neck pickup, and it holds it very, very tight. But that what you're talking about with the oversized poles sort of adds to the warmth of the top end of the guitar, while you still get this sort of great string-to-string clarity, while the sterility of the blades works great for under the wound strings. Again, I don't find that works as well under the planes. So balancing the two is awesome. And the really fun thing about those pickups too is they're some of the best sounding jazz pickups that you can imagine. Like in the neck position of a hollow body, they just sound terrific. But of course, because they look so different, jazz guys are scared of them. And I've been joking about this. What we need to do is just make a plain cover version with just our stuff underneath of it, and jazz guys would totally freak out, right? But then then they wouldn't have to look at the weird design and have it corrupt their aesthetic.
That's awesome. Well, we're getting people writing in now.
Ken.
I know. Well, everyone buys with their eyes, right? So if there's something that they're not used to,
I do it all the time. Yeah,
exactly. So Sarah's writing "Obsessed with the Glitter." I'm sure it sounds great too. And Charles is writing that half and half pole is intriguing. Yeah, Charles, check it out. They make great pickups. While we're still talking about design too, you have a whole arsenal of guitars back there. Why don't you talk about Reverend's approach to building or designing a guitar? Obviously, Joe has a lot to do with it. But I mean, you guys do some wild design, so I think it'd be cool to just understand your mythology with it.
Yeah. So Joe, then this all comes back to Naylor. Naylor designs all of the instruments, and you've seen it up close because we've actually collaborated on some stuff, and with Fishman and Greg and Joe and you and I playing armchair quarterback, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But this So Naylor's design aesthetic, more or less, started with him when he got out of, I'm going to use this one as an example because this is a fun one. When he got out of college in the late 80s, he graduated with a commercial design and engineering degree from Western Michigan University. And he got bit by the guitar bug when he was in college. Which is kind of a late bloomer in this industry, which is kind of fun. But his approach to things, I mean, he just likes to mod stuff, and that's like he mods everything he buys. I've seen the man mod a globe. True story. And so he got so into the electric guitar and taking it apart and putting it together and figuring it out that he ended up, when he graduated from college, going to Roberto Venn Lutherie School in Arizona, in Tempe, and going through Lutherie School, and he came back to the Detroit area and opened up a small retail store. And he was doing a lot of repairs and repaired guitars for a lot of local musicians. He got a great reputation for doing great setups and making things that people maybe thought were previously unplayable in a professional situation, very playable. And Joe had a real affinity for 60s guitars, whether they be the stuff that is completely revered now that costs a fortune, or the cheap stuff. And so Joe, after working on local musicians, guitarists for a number of years, started picking and choosing the features of each of the guitars that he thought really made them stand out. And so when it came time for him to design his own instruments, it became sort of a combination of all of those features with the idea of the guitar tech in mind, where there is nothing on a Reverend guitar that is so parts-wise, that is so uniquely specific to this, that you couldn't swap it out on the road. And that was very important to him. Pickups are standard-sized pickups, and bridges are things that are easily replaceable. Pots are things that are easily replaceable. So that the guitars can be very serviceable, because he made them to play. I mean, he developed the idea while working on players' guitars and wanted to design a player's guitar. And so, and then of course the aesthetic. I mean, Joe's really into the offset waist thing, which you see repeated over and over again in our collection of instruments, because they sit well on the body and they look sleek and cool. And then we get into some interesting pickup combinations and things that are fun. A couple of our best-selling models are a model called the Double Agent, which has a humbucker in the bridge and a P90 in the neck. And then this is the HPP, the 6-gun model. And the version of the 6-gun model is called the HPP for the humbucker P90. And this is sort of Joe's answer to the HSS. So it's kind of a cool example to how his mind works, okay? As you know, we do a lot of business with Wildwood Guitars in Louisville, Colorado, and that's where I met Greg and started our working relationship. And Wildwood does a number of exclusive models with us. And they wanted to do an HSS version of our 6-gun model, which is, of course, a very popular pickup configuration around the globe. And one of the features on all of the production Reverend guitars are what we call the bass contour control. And so the third control out actually removes low frequencies in the same way that the tone control removes high frequencies, in a similar way. It's like a tone shift.
Yeah.
So with an HSS guitar, the single coils and their traditional Alnico style single coil pickups really didn't need the bass contour control. And he started playing around with the HSS concept, and he never really liked it because he always felt the bridge pickup was completely out of balance with the single coils. And there can be times when that's something that you're looking for. One of my favorite early Reverends has a lipstick in the neck and a humbucker in the bridge, and you can do all the strummy chordal stuff, almost acoustic style stuff under the lipstick, and then flip to the neck to play leads, right? And you have two different settings on your amp to do the two different things. But when you're looking for balance across the board, humbuckers mixed with traditional single width single coils don't always balance very well.
Right.
And so Joe has sort of modified this Wildwood guitar to have the bass contour only work on the humbucker so he could get the balance right. And then once he started thinking about it, he was like, you know, what would be more fun would be an HSS guitar where the single coils had more gumption, as it were. And that was where we do a lot of P90 equipped. We have soap bars in a lot of guitars. We sell a lot of soap bar equipped guitars. And the balance between our Alnico humbucker and the soap bars in this is awesome. And Positions 2 still has that like quack you associate with Position 2, but just with more veracity, you know?
Yeah.
And so Joe, I mean, with all of our designs, Joe is sort of, you know, maybe looking to solve a problem that nobody realized needed solved. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's where these things are born. And then, of course, we have, you know, a few basic sort of body styles. Our Charger body, like this Jen Wasner that you see over here, the black and white one. And then our Jetstream body, which is the avocado with our Retro Blast pickups down on the end. And we offer, obviously, a whole line of bolt-on guitars, but we also do set neck instruments. Mm-hmm. This is our Roundhouse, which is our 24 3/4 scale carved top guitar. Still with the offset waist, so it still has a Reverend vibe. And we do a whole lot of 12 strings and baritones, Ken.
Nice. Nice. Well, that's amazing. Joel just wrote in that blue Greg Koch model is gorgeous. Been wanting to try the P90 set. I've heard about it. Send me one. So so Joel's asking for a free one. So you should probably send him one since he asked. And so let's talk about this guitar, and also let's talk about we'll get into the pickups and our whole relationship and how all that came to be.
Sure. Yeah. This so. Greg and I met at Wildwood, and I obviously I knew of Greg. I've been hanging around NAMM shows for 25 years, and I don't have to tell you or probably anybody that watches. I'm sure you've had him on a number of times. I know I watched you guys do a number of these during all the lockdowns and stuff. Greg is just hilarious, and he is he is the most ferocious guitar player. And I would do special runs for the artists that we were working with Wildwood. Wildwood did some custom colors on our Pete Anderson models, and when they would do that, they would get enough of them from me that I would fly Pete Anderson to Colorado, and Pete and I would do a little interview for their channel, and then Pete would demo the guitars individually. And one time I was out there, and I think I might have been out there with Gil Paris and Bob Balch from Fu Manchu, and Greg was there. Greg was coming in as we were leaving, and we were all together for a little while. And Greg and I were Greg was obviously in front of the camera, and I was behind it where I belong. And Greg and I were having this some banner. I don't know what we were going on. We were going on about something or other, like we do. And Steve, the owner of Wildwood Guitars, thought it was just sitting there laughing. And he had them pull out a chair and mic me up and just recorded Greg and I playing guitar back and forth and shooting the breeze back and forth. And then that turned into Greg and I regularly doing that in some demo clinic situations at stores and in our studio here out at the Wildwood Studios. And Greg and I, it's really funny playing opposite a guy like Greg, because people say to me like, oh, that must be really intimidating or whatever. And it's funny, it's not, because I don't have anything to add to that conversation, nor does anybody expect me to be able to. It's actually one of the most liberating places to play guitar on camera when you know you're going to be criticized, because everybody looks at that dude like, oh, whoa,
yeah,
you know.
But then they think you're. They think you're the other guy too. Like he's just holding back. Greg's the lead guitar player. Trust me, he can play.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what? What always gets me is when we're doing like a live clinic situation or whatever, and he says, "Why don't you take one?" And I'm like,
nope.
But I mean, I have a library of maybe 6 really good licks at any good time. The problem with my library is that when I learn a new one, I forget an old one. Whereas Greg has a library of like 60,000 licks that he can pull from any second.
Right.
You know? So how the Greg thing really came along was there's a couple things, and Greg will say this too. Greg was always very impressed whenever he would be in a situation where he had to demo a lot of different brands of guitars, because every time he was handed one of our guitars, it was set up in tune and ready to go. And that is the thing that we do in our building here in Toledo that we're very, very proud of. We want to play better than every other guitar in the guitar store. And so he was always pleased when he was handed one, because he knew that he could go all Greg on it and it would stay in tune, right?
Yeah.
And then when he started meeting our artists and listening to sort of our philosophy on things. So when we make a signature guitar, whether it be Greg's guitar or Billy Corgan's guitar, any of Pete Anderson's guitars, Reeves Gabrel's, Tommy Coffin, Bob Balch, all the people that we do, our signature artists, we're not making a guitar for them to go play live with and then making something to sell to the public. We are making the guitar that they play live with and then offering it to their audience and our audience. So there's no difference between this Gristle 90 that I'm holding and the one that you see Greg using all the time. And we work and develop this in order in order to really achieve it. And the idea behind that is one of my favorite stories, and Penny would remind me, but there was a time when Canadian Customs damn near ruined a bunch of the Cure's equipment, leaving boxes open on tarmac in the rain. And Reeves didn't have a guitar for Riot Fest and went to Chicago Music Exchange and bought a Reverend off the wall and played it that night.
Whoa.
And that's what we're doing, right?
Yep.
So while that takes a little bit more effort in the front end, once you get it down, then you know, like, this is sort of what we do. And Ken, you and I were a part of that process a couple years ago when we developed these the Gristle 90s with you guys. So after hearing me give that spiel a few times, Greg, one day Greg was here and we were filming the Ken and Greg show here in our studio, and Greg just sort of very flippantly says to me, well, if you were ever interested in working together, maybe that would be something that we could work out. I was like, yeah. So I excuse myself and I go outside and I call Joe Naylor and I said, Joe, Greg's here working with me, and Greg said he might be interested in doing a model with us. And Joe just like, well, I've been giving some thought to this because I've been watching you guys like spending more and more time together. And Greg has this one guitar that has like this combination of features or that combination of features, but I know he really likes T-style guitar. And what if we were to take like a Telly body but put the ridge on it and a bolt-on neck like this, that Telly Bird, or I don't remember what he called that thing, and then we could, that sounds really cool. Hold on, let me get him on the phone. And I put Greg on the phone with, they had it done in a 5-minute phone conversation. We ordered prototypes and went into production with the prototypes with only one minor change within a few months. And that was back when we could do stuff quick. And the result of that original conversation is the Gristle Master. And I've got one here, obviously.
I'm pointing, just so you know, I'm pointing to the site too as well, showing everybody your website right now. And the Gristle Master looks unbelievable. All the specs are here, solid body.
The Gristle Master's cool. I'm going to plug it in.
Yeah, plug it in.
So this is a Carina body, and all of the Reverends have Carina bodies. And roasted maple neck, and all of our bolt-ons have roasted maple necks as well. And then it features these weird pickups called Fishman. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Might have.
Fluence pickups. And so Carina is a really, really cool tone wood. It doesn't sound, boy, it's got its own voice. But it is definitely in the family of your ashes and your alders, but it's got a little bit of a sort of a lower mid-punch of a mahogany, but it's consistently lighter weight, and it's a lot of fun because it harkens back to Carina's actually white limba, and limba was used in furniture making, and a legacy brand used it in a couple of weird looking guitars in the 50s or whatever. And so it has a really cool history in guitar building, and it works really good in a bolt-on guitar. The clarity and the initial attack and the punch and the sustain and all the stuff that you're looking for.
Yeah. Also, is that in voice 1?
What was that, Ken?
Is that in voice 1 as well too?
Oh yeah. Yes, indeed. So they're so lightweight. This guitar here is on a little bit lighter than they usually are, but I bet this is 7 pounds 2 ounces, which is crazy.
Yep. So the voice 1, just so people know, is more of your white guard.
This is voice 1 on the bridge pickup.
Yeah, show us a little bit.
I'll play with the big. And with both pickups on. Oh, sorry, I hit the volume control. And on the neck. And then voice 2 is activated by pressing on the little button. Just so you hear the difference when it happens. What do you guys call that, Ken? Because Greg often refers to it as the difference between blackguard and white guard, like
Yeah,
the early 50s, referring
so
back to the early 50s.
yeah, so white guard being early 50s, blackguard being more of a 70s overwound muscular voicing. A lot of people confuse
and on the
that.
bridge pickup.
Yeah, a lot of people
when you put a little bit of overdrive. So this is a JHS Charlie pedal with basically all the controls around 12 o'clock. On the first voicing on the bridge pickup. And when you push it into that second voicing, you can hear the throat.
Yeah, a lot of people confuse the second voicing as just like a louder version of voice 2, but it's actually, again, it's like installing a new set of pickups into your guitar. It's more overwound, more muscular. That's a great looking guitar. And that Telly set, I mean, there's so many artists like Tosin Abasi and others that are just using that pickup, even people that you didn't think would be using it. So
sure,
it's a staple.
I'm not surprised by that at all. And now we've been doing the Gristlemancer. Penny, help me on this, but it's been about 4 years. It's about I think summer maybe of 2018.
Yeah.
And so how long have you been doing this? How long were you offering this set before we started putting it in his signature guitar?
I believe we offered it almost maybe less than a year or so, around a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was around that time. Maybe it could have been 2 years, but still, the T style was something a little bit. It was interesting. It was we threw that in there, and it has all the characteristics. It's almost identical. It's really, really great.
It is, and yeah, I mean, I've played it in a bunch of different live situations, and I like the noiseless quality thing. I do amongst other crazy things that I do a Pink Floyd tribute polka band.
Nice.
And I have call for. I mean, this is a very, very fun guitar to play fingerstyle stuff on.
Yep.
And I mean, basically that tone that I was playing before with the two pickups on, it does the thing, it does that Gilmour sort of clean on the edge thing,
Yep.
that he was doing in the 70s as opposed to like, the later stuff where it became more saturated or whatever. But it's really fun to play that style of music on, among other things. And one of the things that I just saw a really cool video yesterday. As a matter of fact, I think it was one of your guys sent it to me. I don't remember who it was, but it was a cool Telly shootout video from the UK, and they went back and forth with a bunch of different eras and vintage and custom shop and Japanese reissues, and they played all these Tellys back and forth, and then the host asked the pro player guy who he had on, well, what do you dig out with? And the guy's like, oh. And then he reaches behind him and he pulls out the Gristlemancer. And then they end up talking about the Gristlemancer and the Fluence pickups and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, that whole video just went da-da-da, woo.
Yep.
But I was very, and you can, this guy, demoing those pickups. One of the whole reason why I brought that up is one of the things that this guy said in that video was that you can use a Telly to play anything, and people have throughout the history of guitar music. Led Zeppelin 1
Yep.
Was done on a Telly, and Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and all of these like big rock albums were recorded with Telecasters, because there's something about running this through a cranked amp that is just awesome.
Yep.
And I watched Greg play this and achieve any sound you could ever imagine, of course. And I've watched him play this guitar through multiple rigs. I mean, we have an actual 65 twin here in our studio that's been in my family since it was new. And Greg usually uses that when he's in the building, but we've got the Freeman small box over here and all of the different cars and a Naylor rig and EBH and the high watts. And This guitar sounds fabulous through all of them.
Well, I was going to say, they probably shot out a bunch of guitars with a bunch of pickups, and the second you get that guitar in your hands, you're like, whoa, it's like hi-fi at that point. Yeah. And the cool thing that not a lot of people, realize is that there's no hum. And one of my favorite features is when you're, like, especially for Telly players, when you roll back the volume, you're not losing any tone. It's all thick, it's all still juicy.
I am not very loud in here, and I'm not going to crank it up and then blow away all your all's ears while the settings are done. But here's my favorite overdrive of the moment, the angry Charlie. So this is the old Charlie. And then Charlie gets pissed off about something and he's all...
That is absolutely badass. Let's move over.
Hum.
Let's move over to the Greg Koch Gristle 90 real quick, just to pick that up. We're definitely short on time, but I don't want to miss out on any of these.
No. Of course.
So let's talk a little bit about what the guitar is made of. I'm going to flash your site just so people can see.
So after the success of the initial Gristle Master, and then through dealing with us and dealing with you guys, Greg wanted to do a P90 style guitar, and he was looking for, again, the T-style guitar, but with the 24 3/4 inch scale, ebony board, and this is a tilt-back headstock. So it's Carina body and neck. This is beautiful Tosa turquoise, Greg calls it. And these are the Fishman, what you just call these Fluence 90s, right, Ken?
Yeah, they're Greg Koch signature. Yep, Gristle 90s.
And so that's, and this guitar is the Gristle 90 as well. That's hence my confusion. It's, when we prototyped this guitar, we prototyped it with our 9A5 pickups in it to make sure we had the guitar right. And then knowing once we had the guitar right, then we were going to start working on the pickups with you guys. And Greg loved the prototype, and he loved the sound of Naylor's 9A5s. And so we brought a couple different examples of this guitar to you guys in Boston, in Andover, and I'll never forget my fun car ride with you through the tunnel in the middle of the night. Ken drives 150 miles an hour in Boston, folks, just so you all know.
That's the only speed limit. That's the only speed limit we have.
But we sat in the studio with a couple of people, and we dialed in the voice of these pickups to get them to hit all of the points that Greg was hearing with the 9A5s that he liked, and then get your guys' influence on them. And they sound like just killer vintage soap bars. And again, you've got the two voice thing happening, but on the bridge, I mean, right away you can hear that sort of throatiness, and that comes from the set neck, it comes from the way the pickups are done. There's a little bit of a different thing there, but still the clarity is amazing. And that is just the bridge pickup in voice 1, and with both pickups on. And on the neck. And voice 2 takes you into that, subtle, you just turn the volume up a couple more notches on your old champ. Right?
Yep.
You can hear that little, it just starts to compress a little bit more. And I think where it really shines again is just you put like a mild sort of overdrive on it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. Mm-hmm. So when you put out a hardtail?
Here we go with the hardtail question.
I'm just saying that as a joke, obviously.
This is Greg's signature model, folks, and Greg wanted a Bigsby. And the Bigsby thing with Reverend is fun, so keep this in mind. Again, we set up all these guitars and dial them all in-house. And one of the things that we do is we check the rollers on the Bigsbys to make sure they're all functioning properly. And then we have what we call a soft touch spring, which is something that we put together with Reeves Gabrels of The Cure, where he had some Bigsby equipped guitars and always thought the Bigsbys were a little stiff. And he found a spring that was in like a motorcycle clutch, a Triumph motorcycle clutch that he liked. And he gave us a couple of them because he used to buy them at the bike shop. And we had the tensile strength matched and the size done properly for the Bigsby thing. and you end up with this really sort of fluid Bigsby movement, and you can do flutter stuff. And with the roller bridge and the nut done properly and the straight string pull through the nut, I mean, you can be really aggressive with this thing.
That's so awesome.
Oh, wait. See?
And it's in tune. Try doing that with a Floyd Rose.
So yes indeed. Gristle 90.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's move on to the next guitar, which we're very excited here about at Fishman over the Gil Paris signature guitar. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Mr. Gil is a jazz player out of New York City, and we've been doing guitars with him for 20 years. And he played this sort of S style. This is kind of a familiar looking instrument to a lot of people, I'm sure. And he was really into like the sort of the era of these guitars that I'm into, which is like I really like the American Standard stuff between 87 and 94.
Yep.
I really think that they were making a great guitar then. It feels good in my hand. The neck in that era feels similar to the Reverend neck, that sort of medium C. And when we started doing the stuff with you guys and Greg and Gil played together and have done clinics together, and I've had them together a number of times. And Gil expressed interest in using your pickups in his signature model. And so once we started to do like a 3 traditional single coil thing, then Mr. Naylor just decided we should take it all the way and do a Carina necked or a Carina body roasted maple necked S style guitar. We call this thing the GPS, and it features your single widths. And I mean, you talk about I love the second voice on these pickups, man.
Right. That's like, yep.
That's the bridge pickup in the second voice. It's just so clean and pure, and I think the bridge gets lost in a lot of traditional S-style guitars, and that is certainly not the case with your single width pickups.
Yeah, I was gonna say voice one again is like your vintage Strat kind of sound. Yeah.
And then
Texas.
And the noiseless thing with the clarity of that pickup, and I mean really, if you're gonna rip something up like. You hear the glassiness, which is awesome. It's part of the whole thing. So yeah.
So many people say constantly too, like the noiseless factor is always the biggest factor when you're playing like a guitar. For years, Strat players roll back. The guitar and amp will be louder than what they're playing, and then the next thing with Fluence, actually up until Fluence, a lot of people find that noiseless pickups, so you're compensating, right, for tone at that point. So once Fluence came out, I mean, people have been loving that. There's no hum, no 60 cycle.
Yeah, and it does all of the tones. The in between, the second position of your 5-way switch does the thing still that you associate that sound with, right?
Yep.
You're not giving anything up to
Yep.
get rid of that 60 cycle hum, and so often is the case with noiseless single width. You know what I mean? You get a pickup that'll sound terrific in its own right. Like DiMarzio's Corgan set. I mean, makes a Strat sound enormous, but not really like a Strat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It very much changes what the guitar sounds, and that can be a great change if that's the sound that you're looking for. You like the feel of one, and you like holding it, you like playing it, but you want to sound like something different. There's a lot of options out there to get you into different territories, but I find that these pickups really toe the traditional line, just being noiseless, and it's really interesting. Gil likes them in particular because he plays in Manhattan often, and often in less than ideal wiring situations in the clubs that he's playing with, even some of the bigger named clubs that he plays at. he has commented to me how noisy the stages are.
Oh, yeah.
And these pickups are he loves them for that reason. You know.
I can actually, from afar, I can tell you what's the worst thing about that guitar. I couldn't, if I was going to buy one of those, I could not choose between which neck I wanted on that guitar.
Oh, you like the Rosewood?
They look so, both of them look so good, and I would probably go with Rosewood just because I like a darker tone. But oh man, they're both beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So
this is the most familiar. It's interesting that I took some shit for making this guitar, Ken. I'm not going to lie to you.
Really? Why? Why is that?
We've done. I mean, we do our own stuff, and we've gotten this far just by doing our own stuff. But the idea behind this guitar, as goofy as this sounds, was this guitar became a platform for your guys' pickups, and it was what Gil was looking for, and again, this whole concept of ours making the guitar for the artist. I mean, Gil loves our necks, he likes our company, he loves the Carina, and he loved your pickups, and so it just seemed like a natural fit to throw all of those things together. And yeah, it happens to be this body shape, which is somewhat familiar, but so what? It's cool.
Right.
I think it's a cool addition, and I think our headstock looks great on it.
It looks amazing. Yeah. So I was going to say, too, you also have some exciting other artists. I'm flashing one guitar on the screen right now. This is the Billy Corgan signature model. That's pretty cool. How'd you guys get involved with Billy? He's such a rock star.
It's an interesting story, and I'll try to keep it short, but a gentleman from the Detroit area that I used to play in bands with, sister was doing PR for the Pumpkins in the late 90s. And Billy was looking for something very specific, and she heard him talking and introduced him to Naylor. And Joe ended up making him a couple of guitars in '99 with just a slightly extended scale. He was tuning to D standard for stuff on Oceana.
Mm-hmm.
And but they weren't baritones by any stretch of the imagination. I think they were like 20.
Yeah.
A quarter or something. And anyway, and Billy toured with those guitars consistently until we did the signature model. And then he did a Sig model with a Legacy brand, and while that went okay, he was looking for something a little bit different. And when his time with the Legacy brand was up, he put out a call to Joe, and it's really funny. And that era of the Pumpkins, the other guitar player in the band, Jeff Schroeder, was using Reverends, and then his bass player was using Reverends, and then Billy was standing in the middle going, "Oh, this is kind of interesting, you know."
Why don't I have one?
We were hanging around the shows for hanging. Jeff is a great. Do you know Jeff at all, Ken?
Yeah, we met briefly.
He is such a cool dude and such a monster guitarist. I mean, just and at any rate, and that sparked the conversation. And Billy's guidance with Joe was, "You know what I like, make me a guitar," and so we did. And with some very slight tweaks, the body style and the neck and everything of the guitar was finished very, very quickly. And then we got to work on the Railhammer signature pickups for him, looking for a very, very sort of modern guitar tone. We're very excited for our 25th anniversary. We have a second version of the Billy Corgan model coming. And after performing with the guitar that you're looking at now for the last 6 or 7 years, then Billy started coming up with some other things. Billy thinks that the signature model that we're making now, which we dub the BC1, is the best guitar in the world for a ultra modern guitar sound. He thinks the pickups and the guitar work together to produce this very modern sound. But when he goes out and performs, he is performing, I mean, he's going back to Melancholy and Gish and doing a lot of the older material, obviously, with the Pumpkins tour, because they're the Pumpkins. And he wanted us to do a guitar that would better represent his tone that he was getting then without basically doing something like this. And we have come up with a second signature model for him that is just awesome. I think it is one of the coolest things that Naylor has ever designed. And we were supposed to launch it this weekend at a thing that they used to have called the NAMM show. And due to manufacturing trials and tribulations and all these horrific logistics issues that our whole industry is dealing with, the launch of that guitar has been pushed back a few months. I don't think we're going to wait until when the official NAMM is in June. We should have it out before then, but we're not doing it this weekend, unfortunately. But Mr. Corgan has been out doing gigs with it, so there's pictures of it everywhere. So, it was on the cover of Premier Guitar magazine last summer. So everybody knows it's coming. I'm not I'm not divulging a big secret, and it is coming, folks. I promise you. And believe me, nobody is more excited about it than we are. And we also have some 25th anniversary models coming later this year as well.
Yeah, Adam's actually just saying too. Would you say that the new upcoming Billy Corgan guitar destroys? So we're gonna say yes to that. Yes. So that's awesome. Well, listen, I'm very excited that we had you on today. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions before we get out of here because I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay.
You're an important man over there, I hear. So, one of the cool things that I like about you is, from the second that I met you, is that like you are a scene person. You are someone that cares about music. I can tell by your eclectic music catalog that you listen to, things of that nature. Yeah. Tell a little bit of people like what your background is in music, what bands you like, and then I'm going to say, Rob Ketch, our VP of OEM sales. His head almost exploded off of his body when he heard that you liked Ibanez guitars. So just talk about your punk rock history, and then like transition into your love of Ibanez guitars.
That's funny. So I started playing guitar. As a young teenager, I had an uncle who played guitar who passed away when I was young. And when he passed away, he had a 68 Tele and a 65 Twin. The Twin is over there. The Tele is at home. I learned on that guitar, and it never, at the time, I didn't understand that you had to play small amps loud in order to get the Tele to do the metal thing.
Right.
And I was into 2-channel amps and high gain and stuff, and I wanted to rock out. I wanted to emulate my heroes, and so there was an Ann Arbor band called Map of the World, and he played an Ibanez, and I thought it sounded great, and I loved the way it looked. It was a Roadstar with the little notches. Remember those?
I have one here.
Such a cool guitar. And but what really got me, I started sort of a punk rock band in the sort of tradition of Husker Du, and I was really into like SST bands, and I still am. I mean, we work with some legends. We work with Mike Watt, and I've become buddies with Kurt from the Meat Puppets and like the stuff. So that was what I was into in the 80s, was Firehose and Husker Du, and so I wasn't really hitting that tone, and my band opened up for a great Southern California band called Big Drill Car in 1988. And Big Drill Car was out touring their debut EP, and they were on Cruise Records, which had sort of broken off from SST Records, and the dudes from Descendants produced their record, and we were like, oh, who is this? We were so excited about it. And I saw this Big Drill Car band, and the dude was playing a Ibanez RG550, and he would play these really, really cool chordal runs, and then hit a harmonic and bury the bar, And I'm standing in front of the stage like, it just blew me away, and it's so funny because like the Ibanez thing for so many people starts with like Satriani and Bai, like that style of Ibanez,
Yep.
And yeah, they do those things too, but the way that this guy played that guitar, I had to have one, and I bought an RG570, and I still have it, and it was my number. I mean, I played that guitar constantly between when I bought it in '87 or '88 through 94 and 95, and I always liked this sort of the gems and things, but I mean I could never afford them, And then as time went on, and I started buying and selling and trading guitars and doing serious collecting and things like that, I have gone back and collected quite a few of the original gems. Yep. I've got the yellow with the pyramids thing and the swirls and the florals and all of these. And a lot of that I was very, very lucky to get when we had that sort of recession. I did a lot of trades with guys for Reverend gear that that wanted to get some Reverend gear that had those, you know, being plugged into this end of the industry, you know, there were a lot of like Nashville guys that had these things in their storage lockers and they hadn't played them for like 10 or 12 years.
Right.
And I found some really, really cool and interesting pieces. And yeah, much respect to Ibanez. When they started marketing in the States in the 70s,
it's mind-blowing.
A very, very similar thing to what we're doing, where they brought the guitars over here and set them up so that they would be the best playing guitars in the store, you know, and really built their whole brand off of that. And so I feel a kinship.
Yeah, that was all eye candy too for a young person to like pick up an Ibanez, like a '91 catalog or '92, somewhere in that area. You're like, I can't believe these guitars exist. It's so cool, and it's awesome, and it's really funny that you say that because you know I love the fact that you're definitely punk rock. I mean, you'll appreciate this. I had one of those Loch Ness Green Universes that I bought at a store. It was going out of business back when I was a kid, and it was the only guitar I wanted to have. It was a 7-string Universe, but it was lime green. And I played it, and people would like laugh at me when I was playing because I'm playing in a heavy metal band. And it got to a point where I didn't have any money. I sold that one for like $3,000 in order to buy 2 other S-Series Ibanez's, and I built my whole career on it. So I don't regret it. But I'm like you, like when we had the recession, when we had like, you know, in over time, I've just slowly been buying those guitars back. And I have one of each now, so I'm kind of I feel like you know how it is when you go to a Dallas guitar show or something like that. You look at a guitar that's not made of much, but you're just saying to yourself like the reason why this is $250,000 is because there's not many left, and every year one of those dies. You know.
And I have, you know, and we've become friends with so many of the vintage dealers or whatever, and they all think I'm nuts and make fun of me too, but I'll walk around the Dallas Guitar Show and just completely overload on Strats, Tellys, Les Pauls, and SGs, and just be like, and just look for like Ibanez headstocks and Hamer headstocks. I walk around those shows, and that's all I look for, like, you know, and get excited because the other stuff, that's what those shows are for.
Right.
And so you don't see like the Hamers come crawling. Now we're starting to see it a little bit. There was a pretty cool Californian at the show last year or whatever, but that stuff is interesting to me now, and I don't think it's a phase, because if it's a phase, I've been in it for 30 years.
You'll appreciate this. Last time I was at the Dallas Guitar Show, I was walking around and I bought a MIJ Fender Strat. And if obviously you know that was made by Fuji from Ibanez, so
yeah, right, sure.
It's not as much as a C-neck as a regular Strat. And it, so for anyone who grew up playing Japanese guitars, you're just like, oh well, for $450, this is a steal because it's made in Japan and it's made by the people that you know what I mean? If they would put this guitar out today, it would be probably worth $2,000 or $3,000. So I'm in. Okay, I'll buy this.
You'll have to ask Penny about my katanas.
All right.
I have 2 katanas and a Performer. I like love that mid 80s Japanese Fender thing.
Yep.
Katanas are ripping little guitars.
I have never played one.
You know what I'm talking about?
I've never played one, but we have to hang out sometime.
Yeah, for sure. You got to stop by here when you're on the road.
Yeah,
and I want to stop by there again when I'm on the road. I just discovered, so I play in a really cool band now called Jay Navarro and the Traders.
Yep.
Jay Navarro is the lead singer for Detroit band The Suicide Machines.
Yep.
And we are going to be doing the East Coast with Boston legends Big D and the Kids Table.
So crazy parallels. Parallel to that.
Yeah.
Unearth toured with Suicide Machines in the EU on an East Pack Resistance tour. And Big D and the Kids Table, even crazier. I used to play in a very, very small VFW hall scene. The singer, Dave McQuain, of that band, used to be a complete metalhead. He had a band called Spook.
Oh, and he still is.
Right.
Dude, you have to check out the record that he put out last year with this metal band. It is absolutely crushing. It is so amazing.
Right. Yeah. So the crazy thing is he and I used to be friends when we were like 13, 14, and we used to get together and jam. And then I haven't seen him up until like a year or two ago, which was, you know, they're almost 25 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And I rolled up to him like, yo, Dave McQuain. And he looked at me and he's like, oh my God. We just had one of those moments. Like, it was just so cool to see him after all those years. So anyway, I love all 3 of those bands. Unbelievable that you're getting to tour with them. And we have to hang out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, well, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer, guys. I'm gonna give you an outro. Hang tight, but I just wanted to thank you on behalf of Fishman for showing up here on the live stream. Yeah, this is awesome. So let me call you out and hang tight. Guys, everybody, that was a live stream special takeover with Ken Haas from Reverend Guitars. He got to show us so many cool guitars. We got to hear so many cool stories. I hope you all enjoyed this. This all stemmed from somebody on my live stream asking me if Reverend guitars are cool. And I have to tell you, not only are the guitars cool, now you're seeing what I'm seeing. The people that are involved are cool. The company's cool. The guitars are cool. Everything's cool. So, guys, thank you so much. I'll be back with a regular live stream on next Wednesday, 1 to 2 o'clock per usual. I'd like to thank you guys all. And don't forget, head over to the www.fishman.com site for any type of information that you may want to find as far as install guides, acoustic products, amplification, MIDI products, the whole nine. It's all there. Don't forget. So, guys, thank you so much.